is against those who would be classified as handicapped. There you have it. And they demand that the people behind the free speech flyers and posters should be required to. So if you say, here's the deal. It has now gotten to the point where if you say anything at all, that is somebody from the left completely disagrees with, does not agree with you on, and they are a leftist, and because, they're the all-inclusive, all-encompassing, all-caring, all-accepting left, that if you say something that they disagree with, that they do not agree with, that is against their beliefs, they are going to require that you either, one, be thrown in jail, or two, be required to go through some sort of training, sensitivity training, in order to shut you up. Just saying. That's what they're pulling out. I don't know, folks. I don't know. I don't know how to even begin to tell you how bad this is. I mean, now, folks, before we've had this sort of covert attack on our Constitution. They try to do things behind closed doors, and they'd make certain laws that would really be offensive to the Constitution. But now it's just an outright, overt, full frontal attack and war on the United States Constitution. To these nut jobs, political correctness trumps the Constitution. You no longer have the ability. You no longer have the right to say something that is contrary or deemed to be offensive or hurtful to another liberal. Now, the problem is that even liberals are going to be offended by what other liberals say, just depending on how liberal that liberal is that's being offended. Or not being offended. I mean, a moderate liberal might offend an extreme liberal, and an extreme liberal might offend a moderate liberal. So what are they going to do to them? But there is an overt, all-out war on our Constitution. They are absolutely overtly telling you that you do not have the right to say what is on your mind. You do not have the right to free expression because you might offend somebody, and you don't have a right to offend somebody, which is absolutely BS. If you get offended by what I say, that's not my problem. I cannot control whether or not you are offended by my speech. I could walk down the street, say, "Good afternoon, I hope you're having a nice day," to everybody I meet, and it's going to offend somebody. So am I not supposed to talk at all now? Well, that's what the left would like, unless, hey, but all I'm doing is saying, "I hope you're having a nice day. Hello." That's going to, hell, if I walk by a Muslim, I don't even know they're Muslim. Maybe it's an Islamic female. I don't know. She's not wearing the habib and the face covering and all that other garb. And I don't know if she's Islamic. And I walk by and say, "Hi, ma'am, how are you?" Well, that can be deemed offensive. I'm not supposed to talk to a Islamic woman. Unless it's supposed to talk to her male handler. But, the male handler is walking so far in front of her, I don't know that he's with her. Now, I might think she's kind of pretty to say, "Hi, ma'am, how are you today? Great day, isn't it?" And next thing I know, I'm probably getting a knife in my back. Why? Because I offended somebody. Just by saying hello. I can't control whether or not somebody's going to get offended by me saying hello. I can't control if somebody turns on this program and they get offended by what I say. I can't help that. There are a lot of people that aren't offended that listen to this program. Evidently, well over 100,000 people per month listen to this program, so they're not offended. So what? I'm supposed to just shut down? I'm supposed to be shut up and sent away and sent off to sensitivity training because one person tunes in out of well over 100,000 people in a month and they're offended? You know what I tell them, right? Yeah, I'd really offend them then. Because I'd tell them where they could go. Rod, no. That's wicked offensive, Rod. Yeah, go to 1st and 5th. How's that? I don't know. There is a 1st and 5th. There's probably a 1st and 5th. There is. I've never been there. I think I've been there. I have to look it up on a map. Is there a 1st and 5th? It would be 1st Street. No. Wait, it can't be 1st and 5th. It would have to be 2nd and 5th. No, I don't know how they're. It's streets go one way and avenues go the other way, correct? In New York City? Avenues always cross streets and streets always cross avenues. Is that the way it works? Because you got 5th Ave. I could be wrong. I'm not a New York City or cityer, whatever they call it. I don't know how that works. I know it's pretty much a grid with Broadway cutting a strange swath down the middle of Manhattan, but avenues go one way, streets go another way, right? Maybe outside, yeah. So is there a 1st and... Because it's not odd even. See, I don't know everything. I admit it. I try to figure it out a lot of times, but unless I go look... See, I do what Albert Einstein did. I just go look stuff up if I really want to know it. And then once I look it up, I'll most likely remember it. So I'll know it forever. That's the good thing about edumacation. When you self-educate... kind of like self-medicate. But when you well, you can get high on education, but when you self-educate, it's something that's gratifying that sticks with you for a very long period of time because it's something that you want to know about and you want to seek out the information. That's part of the reason why I like doing the show, because I get to self-educate, so I can educate you, the listener, what I have learned for the day. It can be a lot of fun. Hey, did you know? This is for all you Appleites out there. Apple, the company Apple, the Steve Jobs Apple. Did you know that? And then for those of you who don't know, that voice and accent is, Smart from Get Smart. Would you believe Apple is pulling the plug on Beats Music? Yes, I'm sorry, but they are. Apple is pulling the plug on Beats Music. Subscriptions to the streaming service will be canceled on November 30th. If you have an Apple service, Beats Music service, it is going to be canceled November 30. That's your last day for it. Beats Music was set up by Dr. Dre and recording executive Jimmy Levine. Apple has already announced that the service will cease on November 30th. Tech giant is encouraging users to move to Apple Music in the run-up. Apple bought Beats Music back in June of 2014 in a $3 billion acquisition. So all those Beats headphones and everything that cost you like $150, that's now Apple. So Apple is finally closing the door on Beats Music and is going to push all those people towards Apple Music streaming service. So the California-based tech giant will pull the plug out of Beats Music on November 30th, when all subscriptions for the service will be canceled. So you're going to have to go from Beats to Apple Music. According to the support document, Beats Music will cease at the end of this month. The statement said all the pros that curated music for use are still crafting more amazing experiences. Stuff that you used to hear on Beats, but over on Apple Music. So basically it took, half to figure out how to convert all you Beats people over. It must have been a lot of subscribers to Beats for Apple to pay $3 billion for it. Dr. Dre made out. By the way, did you know that Apple Beats Music acquisition, transfer, whatever, $3 billion acquisition cost was by far the most expensive in Apple's 38-year history? I don't know if Steve Jobs would have spent that kind of money for it, but Tim Cook, now the big guy at Apple, the guy who's openly gay, I guess he likes Dre. There you go. So you're going to have to go over to Apple in order to get. Now, I don't know about it. Said nothing about all those Beats by Dre headphones. I don't. What are they going to be? Beats by Apple now, or is it Dre's headphones by Apple? I don't know. I don't know if they're changing it. Story didn't say. Just going to have to figure that one out on your own. Those headphones aren't cheap, by the way. And just because you're paying $150 doesn't mean... I've tested some of the headphones in stores. Now, it's not scientific, of course, but just for my own preferences. And I get some of the expensive... Yeah, there are some expensive ones. For expensive, I'm going to say over $50. Some of the expensive ones are very good. But some of the $20 brands, that mid-price range, sound better or just as good as those expensive ones. So I don't see the need for paying, $80, $90, $100 for those expensive ones when those $20 or $25 ones sound just as good and sometimes better. All because, one has the well-known name on it attached to it and one doesn't. So you're paying for the name when it comes to that kind of stuff. Kind of like where, sneakers. Do you really... But do you really need those really expensive sneakers, or can you get by with a cheaper brand? And are they going to last any longer than the cheaper ones? Probably not. Not when it comes to that stuff. But I won't say who, because we know who. We know, and he's opening stores now by himself, all his own. Own brand, own name. Flying through the air, expensive stuff. Sure, they might look cool. They might look. You go to Marshall's or some other knockoff place, pay less or something. Find that lasts you just as long. Look almost as good. But they don't have the same name, but they look close. They're kind of a knockoff. But do you really need to spend $250 for a pair of sneakers, or would $35 do you? I'm just saying. Disagree if you want to. Oh, do I need to go to sensitivity training now because I've just mocked all the people that bought these expensive things because something less expensive is just as good as a more expensive thing? Oh, wow. Sorry I